Too many good saves.
Arozzi scores!
Mike Arozzi!
Drive into left! At the wall, it's gone!
Pulls it up. Heisman moving. Blue line chance. Score!
In the air, left field! The Tigers march to the...
I pretty much came out of the womb playing sports, and as I grew, it turned into this raw, unfiltered love of competition and love of winning. I played a lot of different sports, everything from hockey to baseball, basketball, you name it, I probably played it, and I believe they have defined me and turned me into the person that I am today.
So good. check between the ferns.
Alma. The biggest influencer I've ever had in my life is my dad. He's one of the hardest workers I know, and he always has been. He actually coached me from when I was 3 or 4 playing baseball and hockey. He coached me all the way up until I got to college in every sport. He was there. I was actually reading a study the other day from Harvard, T.H. Chan. It's a school for public health. 3 in 4 adults were surveyed. Over 3/4 of them agreed that sports benefited their child's physical health. It teaches them discipline, dedication, and allows them to learn interaction skills with other people. 73% of them stated that their child's mental health benefited from their involvement in sports. If sports are so important and popular in our culture, why isn't there more of an emphasis on providing better mentors? There's so much literature out there. Alan Stein, his 4 main characteristics of a relationship that must be met in order for the relationship to succeed is communication, compromise, respect, and trust.
I trusted you!
They span across every relationship in life. You can easily apply it to sports, and I have.
Deep corner 3 on the way.
Each sport involves relationships, and to be successful, you have to know how to create and maintain these relationships. You have to create an atmosphere to foster the growth. After coaching for so many years, I've come to the realization that goal setting is such an important motivation factor. Players want to become better and learn from you, but they don't always know how to do it.
On, wax off, breathe in through nose.
Building these lines of communication, these different avenues for players to trust you and respect you, it all ties into one word for me, and that's immediacy. Immediacy is the closeness, or basically availability of a coach to his players.
Fun?
Fun, sir.
Fun, sir.
It's fun.
Yes.
You sure?
I think.
Now you're thinking. First you smile, then you think. You think football is still fun.
Greater effect could lead to greater cognitive learning of the sport and all its complexities, possibly leading to greater recall of information and greater performance by the players. Iroka is suggesting here that, the more a player loves the sport and genuinely cares about his team, the more adept and immersed they become in the sport. The player will become easier to teach because they want to be there. They'll grasp your concepts and your learning points easier than if they had no attachment to the sport. This demonstrates that the more invested a player and a coach are in the sport, the more likely they will succeed. I read an article by Cassing and Infante in 2009, and in it they said that high-performance athletes received more feedback from coaches than their low-performance counterparts. I understand why coaches fall into these habits. These high-performance athletes share a lot of crossover with athletes who devote most of their time to the sport. The guys that were really good, they were good because they spent extra time watching film with coaches. They spent extra time learning from the coaches. So it makes sense that the high-performance athletes naturally have better relationships with coaches because they're around them more. Players' perceptions of themselves and their playing ability is linked to the quality and quantity of coach feedback on performance and success. I mean, that was in the Black and Weiss study all the way back in 1992. They are arguing that the more you give your players positive feedback and the more you teach them, the more even constructive criticism, the more they will learn, the better they'll feel, the better they'll play. Cassing states when athletes perceive their coaches as being verbally or physically aggressive, they recorded lower levels of satisfaction with the team and the sport.
I'm not a teacher.
Player satisfaction and learning should be one of the most important goals for a coach. It's nice to win, it's a lot of fun, it makes the game so much easier. But at the end of the day, your athletes should be learning. You should be preparing your athletes for the next step in life, whether that's to go on and play college athletics, or if you're a college coach, to go on and become better people and productive people in society. The study consisted of a survey that was provided to players and coaches that could be taken anonymously online. A total of 218 people responded in my survey, but I had to remove over 130 of them because they left most of their responses blank. From there, I began to cultivate the opinions into a cohesive review of the study as a whole. I did the inverted pyramid method, so I started out really easy and I asked them why did they participate in sports. The final question that was asking if they believe the relationship is essential to the play and willingness to compete of an athlete. So the first few questions I was easily able to break down and simply ask why people participate in sports.
Business ethics.
The major trends in the answers lean towards participation in sport because of love of the game, the relationships built, and the useful skills they could build that they could use after the sport. As you can see in the chart, of the total 83 respondents, 33 people said that they participate in sports to build skills, 25 say for exercise, 50 for love of the game, 22 for a mental release, and 49 to build meaningful relationships.
I am not one to...
You know, a majority of athletes play because they have an emotional attachment to their sport, and at Alma College, this is no different. You know, Division III is all about continuing to play your sport and the love of the game. These athletes and coaches agree that loving the sport you play should be essential. I mean, one respondent even noted that passion for the game needs to be there. When you have this love, it's not work, and that will transfer to everyone around you. It's so contagious. You know, many of my respondents echoed those thoughts and even adding things as, you know, I enjoy the sport itself and the atmosphere that comes along with it. And it's what I love, and I take pride in being good at what I do.
Hello, 911 emergency. There's a handsome guy in my house. Oh, wait a second, cancel that. It's only me.
Over half the respondents stated that they participate in sports because of the relationships. Stein would argue that the lifeblood of a team runs through the relationship of the players and the relationship of the players to their coach. So I mean, if sport is so important to players and coaches because of all of these important reasons, then it should reason to believe that the relationship of a coach and their players should carry that weight. I mean, according to my respondents, almost 83% of the athletes said that they had coaches who helped in the process of building meaningful relationships and skills for life. One athlete even noted that my coaches have gone out of their way on a consistent basis to make sure I'm successful. They have individualized my practice schedule and are supportive of me in everything I'm involved in.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
My coach inspired me to think about coaching as a career. We still keep in touch. He was a great coach, but also a great man who taught us the game, and he genuinely cared about each athlete. You know, another coach mentioned you hear from players you coached 10, 15 years ago who write you letters or send emails saying, I remember some of the lessons and skills you taught us in practice and games, and I'm able to apply them now every day in my life at my job. This coach also noted that this was one of the main reasons that makes coaching so enjoyable and worth every struggle. You're getting into this, so you need to be ready to pay the price. You can't worry about watching other people go through their careers and being successful or taking girls out to nice restaurants when you can barely afford to go out yourself. You have to be so dedicated to maneuver through all the little hoops. Everything I had to do as an assistant, I would do it all over again in a heartbeat for this opportunity to work with these athletes.
In the house. Come.
The relationship's ability to become so important in people's lives conversely means that it can also be just as detrimental in an opposite effect. 27 people in my survey stated that they've had coaches who hindered the process of building relationships and skills instead of helping. And of those 27 responses, 24 actually said that they performed worse in that sport or quit it altogether. One athlete even said that coach's comments about my weight and his lack of constructive criticism disrupts my psychological performance, which in turn has hindered my athletic performance. This same person stated that sports had been a place to foster their relationships and give a mental release when I am feeling frustrated. Another common theme among athletes on campus is that coaches are a determining factor as to whether the sport is enjoyable or not.
Get a whistle.
Some athletes feel as though coaches can make practice feel similar to work. And this may lead to lack of effort, which leads to decreased performance. Because it's not work. You're not getting paid. You don't have to be there. We want to be there. And I know the common response to that might be, well, practice should be similar to work because it's so repetitive and you have to hone your skills and it doesn't have to be fun. My response back to that is that these same athletes who have said the game can feel monotonous and not worth it also stated that they enjoyed sports because it taught them life lessons such as hard work and determination. These same people who enjoy learning how to work hard and be determined are also on the same note saying that they don't want to practice hard. I just don't believe that. I believe that it's genuinely not fun for them. So I mean, in the end, coaches just need to strike a balance between the work and enjoyment. This is such a difficult task because each player has different values and skill levels. But I mean, that's what makes coaching so strenuous. You know, to talk about the other side of this, coach isn't very encouraging, so that has caused me to be encouraging to my teammates. Coach was so stuck in his ways, I would use that as fuel for the fire. He would get mad at me and I would perform better in spite of him. They relied off of passion for the game. They didn't need a coach to instill the passion. I think it's great that players have the confidence and are able to thrive off that, but not everyone is like that. Although these athletes' thoughts were a minority in the findings, they also noted in the responses that coaches who had faith in their players and would go out of their way to help received the most from their team. One coach stated that you have to have a gauge for each one of your players. I'm always going to be a little more harsh in practice than in game, but the best coaches have a great feel for what makes each player tick and to get the best out of them. When you don't have the best players, you need to figure out a way to get the most out of them. You have to adjust your styles to the players. The coach also went on to state, the relationship is the most important. If I don't care about that, you can't fake it. If they sense that, you will get the most out of them. You're influencing them every day, every conversation, every drill, whether you think you are or not.
Is he dead? Hell no.
I found this statement increasingly interesting when one athlete noted a playing experience he had from 2 different coaches. Coach wasn't a great technician, but he was so personable and he knew how we operated. He got the most out of us in the system he operated. On the other hand, I had a coach who knew a lot about the game, but didn't care for his players. We didn't play as well together. We didn't put forth the effort that we would have. Going off of this comment, it leads me to think, what makes a good coach? And does the relationship play a role in that? And I don't believe there's 100% exact answer to this question, but through my findings, I'm able to narrow down attributes and styles that work the best for students and coaches of Alma. 80 out of the total 83 respondents agreed that a close relationship that facilitated this open communication is essential to the level of play and willingness to compete of an athlete. The 3 participants that disagreed stated, I believe this is an important part for many athletes, but not an essential part for all. No, but it's extremely helpful. No, I do not believe that a coach has to have a relationship with their players in order for the players to perform. I think an athlete-coach relationship should be strictly professional and should have boundaries. You know, the first 2 answers state that the relationship is important, but it's interesting to note that the third answer above believes the relationship doesn't have to be prevalent. But the majority of athletes, 96.4% at Alma, will agree that it's easier to play for a coach you respect. I think the relationship is everything. It's very fragile. I want to protect that relationship and learn from it. If you stop learning, you need to stop coaching. Every single year is different and you're working with a new group of players. For an athlete to even want to participate to the best of their ability, I believe they need to have a good relationship with their coaches. If they don't, they may start to dread coming to practice today, and that's not a healthy environment.
Dad!
Not now, Sam.
The way coaches and athletes interact with each other can, if done the wrong way, affect a player in a mental capacity, and that can have a profound impact on their performance. When a player completely trusts the coach and feels like they are part of their family, the athlete, in my opinion, is more likely to work harder in practice and trust that their coach is doing the right thing.
I intend to start you. Start NCAA Division I ball.
What is it with you, mister? I've accepted it. What are you smoking?
After analyzing the data and talking to so many different people with so many different backgrounds, I've come to the simple conclusions that the relationship is important. And I would have to agree with Alan Stein that the 4 main characteristics of this relationship boil down to communication and how well you do it, the compromise between a coach and his players, the respect that also goes both ways between the coach and players, and the trust that's fostered in that environment.
What? Do you trust me?
I think if you're missing any one of these main foundations, the relationship can deteriorate, which also can lead to a deterioration of the team. The amount of time and effort that we put into our relationships should reflect, who we are and who we want to become. We surround ourselves with people we want to be around and people who should be able to help you and motivate you to become better. And that shouldn't be any different for coaches. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my thesis and honors day presentation.